We're going to talk a little bit about the NOC service itself and primarily how it's broken down. Generally, there's actually two levels of the actual NOC service that we provide. It is an a la carte service, so you can split up devices and whatnot. Some devices can have different flavors of the same service depending on their impact to the infrastructure and whatnot. The two main breakdowns are watch and manage. Quite simply, in a nutshell, the watch service is going to be real-time monitoring and reaction to alerts that are generated by your RMM tool, whatever that may be. We can react to those alerts. We have a human being looking at those alerts, making a judgment call, determining that the actual alert is valid and not a false positive or a false negative. And with that alert, following an escalation path as set out by ourselves and the MSP or the reseller during the onboarding. So essentially, it's an escalation path that's established for what we should be doing with these types of alerts, and that's what the watch service will do. We'll be patching the machines, making sure there's proactive maintenance done on them as far as operating system patches, virus updates, etc., things of that nature. And then the reactive service is where we're reacting to alerts generated by your software tools. And then we escalate those issues, triage appropriately, and escalate them to the teams that require notification on that. The thicker service, or the full package, if you will, is the managed service. It definitely includes everything that the watch has, but instead of actually dealing with just the non-remediation or the simple troubleshooting of that issue, the managed service goes the extra step and actually works to resolve that, looking for root cause analysis, going through event logs and whatnot. Ultimately, it's their goal under that license to determine why that problem is happening, what steps can be put in place to prevent it from happening again. We also have a desktop preventative maintenance plan for workstations. In a NOC environment, workstations support is usually something that's not very popular. You know, when you're dealing with workstations that are used by, say, staff members and whatnot, it's difficult to react to alerts developed or based on the workstation itself, because quite honestly, you know, if someone leaves for the weekend or for the evening, they turn the machine on, and if there's an agent on that machine and NOC services are enabled, well, what's going to happen is we're going to receive a whole bunch of alerts and whatnot, you know, based on that essentially false negative. But that being said, it's still very, very important to apply or have some proactive maintenance on those machines, even if we're not supporting NOC services in the traditional sense on those devices. So what we've put together is something called desktop preventative maintenance. And essentially what that does, it allows us to actually patch those machines, make sure that those machines actually have the latest operating system software and patches and virus definitions in place. We can set that up on a schedule. We will also, if your RMM tool supports it, we will help set up the actual patching, so it's an automated process. So essentially, what happens in the background is your software starts working for you and actually starts patching these machines. So although there is no NOC services on the actual workstations themselves, we do have a plan that we can actually apply to those workstations to make sure they're up to date and running at their peak efficiency. Remote system administration is something Dan touched on a little bit. It's essentially it's a non-on-demand service for project work and whatnot. You know, there are situations or are things that would be considered out of scope for our NOC services, either under the managed plan. Some things might be SQL migrations, Office 365 migrations from Exchange boxes, things of that nature, upgrading and downgrading machines and decommissioning Active Directory services, things like that. Generally things that would be considered a project-oriented and not necessarily a break-fix type of problem. We offer the remote system administration, which quite simply is a block of time that you would actually purchase for us to actually handle and plan and resolve some of those migration challenges you might have. For example, one we've done recently is a simple 2000 Server 3 migration to Server 2010. You know, that's the perfect type of situation that wouldn't be handled by our NOC team, but definitely would fall under the purview of remote system administration. We've also added some recent support for some a little bit more specialized services, specifically database connectivity and maintenance regarding MySQL and MSSQL. We've also taken on some Cisco work as far as Cisco Call Manager, so we have the ability to actually provide NOC, watch, and managed service on those types of devices. And with Exchange as well, we're able to actually have some specialized teams actually look directly at those devices for you if that's the service you need. I mean, we can be monitoring the server itself. I'll use SQL servers as an actual example. We can definitely monitor that box under an actual server managed service, but it may not cover some of the intricacies within of SQL Server. SQL Server requires a little bit of a specialized hand, if you will, in order to actually monitor and correct things of that nature. So that's why we've decided to expand the offering a little bit to include some of those more specialized services. So the server watch, again, this is a little bit deeper. Essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting some monitors based on some best practices, and essentially it's going to be server up and down monitoring, specific service availability, performance monitoring, CPU, disk usage, memory usage, things like that. We'll also be monitoring event logs, and we can also monitor website up and down. Now, initially, what we'll do is we will basically monitor these based on best practices. However, we have the ability to tweak the thresholds and frequencies based on what's applicable to the infrastructure. We realize not one service will have a cookie cutter fit into every single business out there, so we're flexible enough to work within some fairly reasonable confines. Again, as I mentioned before, this is essentially an alert and escalation service only. So what we would be doing, we would analyze the alerts, determine that they're valid with an actual human being actually making that judgment call, and then proceeding with the escalation path that we had discussed during the onboarding. And that's something that we do fairly exhaustively, is making sure that those processes in place work well. Windows Patch Management will use the tools that you guys have provided with us and already invested time and money into to make sure that the patching is set up and happening on a regular basis. Where the NOC team comes in after the fact is basically being able to respond to patches that have failed for whatever reason. We can look into that and we can remediate those. Likewise with backup management, probably the most important feature of an actual system is the ability to restore it in the case of a functional problem. So we can monitor backups on a wide variety of applications and essentially react to those alerts accordingly. Now the server manage itself is actually definitely goes a little bit deeper than that. It does include everything that the watch service handles, but where it actually focuses on is the actual remediation of it. So essentially, basically, although we'll be receiving alerts in this, it's also our job at this stage to actually remediate the problems. So we're going to be going through your event log, and we're going to be looking for patterns that have been generated, how often this alert has happened. Does it seem to be coinciding with other events on the machine? And basically, this helps us boil down or get down to the root cause analysis of what the actual issue is, and then in turn solving the problem, preventing the alert from happening again. Again, patch management is fully supported at the same level as the actual server watch, as well as antivirus and backup management. Again, same type of idea as far as the backup management goes. We can monitor those backups, make sure they're happening, except we go an extra step further in trying to determine what actually happened and what we can do to stop it if there is an actual problem with any of those monitors. We offer the same level of service and demarcation on network devices as well. Essentially, what we can do is we can actually watch switches and manage firewalls, watch guards, sonic walls. You mentioned, you name it. We can monitor it and confirm whether something's gone down or not based on an alert. And when we go into the actual managed type or the managed level of that same service, again, basically the focus isn't just on alerting and escalation. It's a focus on remediation of the actual problem. If we need to do firmware updates or make configuration changes to a managed switch, we can definitely do that under the network device managed product. The desktop maintenance in I think we talked about a little bit. It's essentially just that. You know, we realize that there really isn't a big market for NOC services on an actual desktop, but that doesn't mean they should be left out of the equation. It's very, very important in any network to make sure all of the machines are up to date and running smoothly, and that's not just the servers. So we offer the desktop maintenance product as a thin layer of NOC services, if you will, to ensure that these lesser machines in your network stay up to date with the latest operating system, security updates, patches, as well as antivirus and whatnot.